Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you to Chairman Kim for hosting me here. Thank you to the Canadian government for making this possible. And I greatly appreciate you all taking the time. I know as a journalist it's very hard to find time for these kind of events. I appreciate you all coming here. When I ask my students, do they sleep next to their phone? My students in their early 20s. You can imagine they all say, yep, they go to sleep. Phone is the last thing they look at. What do you think is the first thing they look at when they get up? Their phone. What do they do when they leave home? They check their phone is with them. Their phone is an extension of who they are. And this is increasingly how we need to think about media consumption. The overriding role of mobile in being that initial gateway to the news. What we then have is when you look at audience patterns, you can see how sort of different platforms work at different times of the day. And thinking of news as not being this discrete activity that happens at certain times of the day. News does not just happen in the morning with the newspaper or in the evening with the television newscast. News is a day-long activity. And the way people access the news will help us decide on what we do as journalists and how we can get attention. So we can see from this study from ComScore how the patterns there change, with mobile being predominant in the morning. Then as we come through the day, when people are in their offices, then it becomes the desktop, and then the tablet in the evening, which is more of the catching up of the day. So again, we're seeing that the patterns of news consumption are changing and have changed. Yet how many of our daily routines are still geared around artificial deadlines that were imposed by technology of the past? There are news organizations that are newspaper companies that still think of a 5 p.m. deadline for their copy. They still publish stuff during the day on the website, but the newsroom is geared around the 5 p.m. deadline because that's when the copy needs to be in for the print edition. And I look at that and go, that is insane. You have an audience 24/7, maybe not at night when they're sleeping for 8 hours, but essentially you've geared your ways, your newsroom routines around one platform, which might still be important, still matters, at the risk of harming the audiences on all these other platforms, at all these other times when people want their news and information. So it's not just about, oh, we have to put stuff on a mobile. It's about changing the way we work in newsrooms and changing some of the routines that are not because, as journalists, we decided that was the best way to do it, but rather imposed by the limitations of the technology that we were using at the time. What that means for us as journalists is that the way our audience relates to what we produce is different. They expect our information to be timely, but not timely by what we might consider timely, but what they consider timely according to their needs. The New York Times has an app called NYT Now. And what NYT Now does is geared around selecting some of the stories from the New York Times, but then also stories from other news providers. And it's geared around the habits of the user. So when I open up the app in the morning, it says, "Good morning, Alfred. This is what you need to know today." It basically is setting me up for that day by telling me these are the stories you should be paying attention to. Here's some things that happened overnight that you might have missed. If I look at it at lunchtime, it goes, "Good afternoon, Alfred. Here's what's happened so far today." So it's catching me up with what I might have missed that morning. If I open it up in the evening, it says, "Good evening, Alfred. Here's what you need to know about what happened today. Here's some context. Here's some background," both from the New York Times and from its competitors, from CNN, from ABC, from the BBC, from The Guardian. Because what it's saying is, our service isn't just giving you the New York Times. It's giving you the best of what we have and the best of what our competitors have done. in a way that is tailored around what you need at the time you need it. And of course, my morning is Vancouver time, Pacific. If I was in the East, it would tell me good morning 3 hours earlier and tailor the news around what I need at that time. And that is a different way of thinking about our deadlines, thinking about our audiences, and thinking about what they need that is contextual to the device they're on and to their needs at a specific time and place. In fact, I also have the New York Times app on my phone, which now I never ever use it because I never have time to read the whole New York Times. There's too much in there. What the New York Times, what NYT now does is says, we know you don't have much time, we know you have limited attention, we will make best use of the time you devote to us so that the attention you pay to us is a really good investment. You will get the best from us and the best from everywhere else. And it'll be tailored to what you need to know at this particular time. Essentially, this is what's happened. Edelman produced a study looking at trust, and they looked at this model in terms of how the media space has changed. And this is where we're having the trouble adjusting. From this vertical model, where we had all our institutional elites, and media being part of that elite, and the public. Straightforward enough. We're in a privileged position. It's a different context when it comes to finances. And then suddenly we're in this situation where, yes, we still have all the same institutional elites. We still have politicians, we still have CEOs, we still have big media companies, and they are still powerful. Media is still powerful. Journalists are still powerful. But, and here's the big but, they are sharing the media space with citizens, with technology companies, with activists, with algorithms, with all these other forces. So the media space is now much more, not just open, but hybrid, where you have both old and new, and they're all competing for attention. They are all saying, look at me, which then means that our job as journalists to bring people to what's important, to help them navigate their lives, is far more challenging because we're competing for attention in a very crowded space, which also has a range of new players in it, both from the audience themselves to major technology companies. And for that, it's thinking about how information gets diffused, how it gets passed on. In some ways, I would say that news is everywhere, and it has to be made to be everywhere. You have to think in terms of how your content is going to exist in multiple spaces. The Verge technology website in the States, I went to one of their presentations recently where they were talking about their strategy in making news to be everywhere. And they do 15 different versions of a story. One for their website, one for mobile, one for Instagram, one as a GIF, one Facebook video, 15 different takes of the story. And of course, it's very different. If they're doing an animated GIF, that is just going to essentially capture attention. But the idea then is saying, well, if we can capture your attention with an animated picture, maybe then you'll click and read the story on a website or a mobile phone. But again, thinking in terms of how can I make my news to exist in all these different places and to exist in a way that works within that platform, that works within that space, that works in Instagram, that works in Facebook, that works on a website, that works on a mobile phone. Making content that's designed to be shared, that taps into why people want to share. The reason people use social media isn't because it's this amazing new technology. It's because they're human. It's because we have an innate desire to share, to enrich the life of others, to tell others about what we know. So how can you tap into that innate desire that people want to be informed? People want to share what they know with their social circles. They want to gain social, reputational capital by being able to highlight interesting pieces of information. So your news needs to be designed to be shared. It needs to be made for mobile. In some cases, this might be switching to a strategy where your primary outlet is mobile and everything else comes after that. That's what some language services at the BBC have done. If they're getting more than 50% of their audience on mobile phone, then they have to think mobile first. That is their digital strategy. So again, this will depend on the context, but it's a key discussion to have, and that often might mean reorienting your newsroom, practices, your ways of working, when your deadlines are, how you write stories. This is cultural change. And most importantly, we still need to have news that matters. I'm not making an argument here for everybody to create lists or to put up cute videos of cats, because that's a way to grab attention. But rather, there is still a really key role for journalists. Given the amount of information there is there, given all the sources that are out there, given the limited attention compared to the amount of information demanding attention, there's a vital role for journalists in helping audiences choose and decide. It's not just for the journalist to tell you stuff. That is not enough for a journalist today. We're not just reporters. We're also curators. Think of yourself as a DJ, as a musical DJ. You might have some of your own music that you play on your show that you've done, but you also say, hey, this band has done this really good record. Let's play this. This is a really good record. I am helping you to decide which records to listen to. I'll play some of my own, but then I'll also play from all these other sources. A bit like NYT now does, where it gives me a selection of the best material from the New York Times, and then the best material from a range of competitors. Something that would have been unheard of in previous times, to actually link to your competition. But it speaks to this new role for the journalist, where we can make the important matter, not just by saying to people, you have to read what I do, but you will come to me because I'm a trusted navigator. I'm a trusted curator to help you decide where you should devote the limited attention you have, so you can be informed, you can be empowered, and you can feel confident in the decisions that you're making. Thank you very much.